Hi everyone and thank you for choosing my video to watch. I appreciate all the love and support very much, thank you all. Here we have 3 urban legend stories to scare you. Are these stories familiar to you? If so, why not comment your thoughts below? Are there any other legends you would like me to write about? Please comment.
The Willowbrook State School was a monstrous edifice that seemed to emerge from the earth like a festering wound, its walls thick with vines that climbed upward like tentacles, their tendrils twisting and writhing in the fading light of day. The building loomed on the horizon like a twisted, gnarled nightmare, its windows dark and foreboding, its doors seemingly sealed shut to keep out the outside world. But the darkness that clung to the school was not just a physical darkness. It was a darkness of the soul, a darkness that had taken root and grown twisted and gnarled like the vines that crept up its walls. Within its corridors and classrooms, the forgotten children had suffered, their screams echoing through the dark and labyrinthine halls. They were the children no one wanted, the children society had deemed too difficult or too different to care for properly. And so they had been relegated to this hellish place, left to suffer in silence as the world turned a blind eye. And in the heart of this darkness, something even more sinister lurked. Cropsey, they called it. A creature of pure malevolence, a demon that feasted on the souls of the innocent. The stories were like a disease, spreading from mouth to ear and growing more twisted with every telling. Some said that Cropsey wielded an axe, his weapon of choice for carving up his prey. Others claimed that he had no need for such things, that he could kill with a glance or a single touch. The locals whispered of Cropsey's wicked deeds, of the shadowy figure that crept through the night, waiting to pounce on unsuspecting children. They spoke of the screams that could be heard emanating from the depths of the abandoned school, of the blood that stained its walls and floors. But for years, no one knew for sure if Cropsey was real. Until Andre Rand came along. Rand was a janitor at the Willowbrook State School, a man with a troubled past and a taste for violence. He had once been a promising young man, full of hopes and dreams, but life had a way of crushing even the strongest of spirits. And so, when the school was finally shut down in 1987, Rand refused to leave. He continued to live there, a shadowy presence lurking in the darkness. At first, no one paid much attention to Rand. He was just another vagrant, another broken soul seeking refuge in the abandoned school. But as time passed, whispers began to circulate. Children were disappearing from the streets of Staten Island, snatched from their homes in the dead of night. Parents began to keep their children indoors after dark, locking their doors and windows and praying that they would be safe. The police investigated, but their efforts were hampered by the twisted maze of the abandoned school. They searched the halls and classrooms, the attics and basements, but they found nothing. It was as though the school had swallowed the missing children whole, leaving no trace of their existence. And then, one day, a group of children stumbled upon a hidden room, a place of darkness and decay. It was a room that had long been forgotten, a place that even the teachers and administrators of the school had not known about. And there, crouched in the corner, was Cropsey himself. His eyes gleamed with malevolent glee as he snarled at the children, his claws extended. The room seemed to pulse with a dark energy, a force that threatened to overwhelm the children even as they fled, screaming into the night. The police were called, but they were too late. Cropsey was already on the move, darting through the darkness like a shadow, slipping through cracks in the walls. The legend lives on to this day.
I hope you enjoy the content I upload. If you like what I'm doing, why not think about clicking on the subscribe button to keep up to date on my uploads. Thank you all for the great support.
In the dark alleys and quiet streets of Japan, there lurked a monster that was never caught. This was the Alice Killer, a name that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who heard it. The Alice killings were a legend, a tale whispered in the shadows by those who were brave enough to speak of it. But the legend was all too real for those who had lost loved ones to the killer's merciless blade. The first victim was found in 1999, her body mutilated beyond recognition. Her blood had been drained from her body, leaving her skin as white as snow. A single playing card was found near her body, a 3 of hearts with the word, Alice, written in the victim's blood. The police were stumped, they had no idea who could have committed such a heinous crime. As the years went on, the killings continued. Each victim was found in the same condition, their blood drained in a playing card left behind with the name, Alice, scrawled in their blood. The killer was meticulous, leaving no evidence behind. The police were at a loss, unable to even begin to piece together a profile of the killer. The rumors began to spread, whispers of a curse that had befallen those who dared to speak the name, Alice. The locals became paranoid, locking their doors and avoiding the streets after dark. But the killings continued, each one more brutal than the last. It wasn't until 2005 that the killings suddenly stopped. The police never found the killer, never had the chance to bring him to justice. But the legend of the Alice killer lived on, a nightmare that haunted the dreams of those who had heard the stories. But the truth was even more terrifying than the legend. The killer was still out there, his blade thirsting for more blood. He had been watching the police's every move, staying one step ahead of them at every turn. He reveled in the fear that he had instilled in the hearts of the people, knowing that his legacy would live on long after he was gone. The killer's true identity was never discovered, but there were whispers that he had been possessed by a demon that had given him the power to drain the life force from his victims. It was said that he had made a deal with the devil, trading his soul for the power to kill without fear of reprisal. But the truth was even more disturbing. The killer had no supernatural powers, he was just a man with a twisted mind and a thirst for blood. He had been trained in the art of killing by a secret society of assassins, a group that had been operating in the shadows for centuries. The society had taught him how to kill silently and efficiently, how to leave no trace of his presence behind. He had been their star pupil, the one they had groomed for years to take over as their leader. But he had become too powerful, too unpredictable. The society had cut ties with him, fearing that he would turn on them. But the killer had other plans. He had become obsessed with the idea of leaving his mark on the world, of creating a legacy that would never be forgotten. He had chosen the name, Alice, for his victims as a tribute to his mother, who had died when he was young. She had always loved the story of Alice in Wonderland, and he had wanted to honor her memory in his own twisted way. The killer had never been caught, but his legacy lived on. The legend of the Alice killer continued to haunt the people of Japan, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of their peaceful society.
Charlie No Face had been a fixture of Beaver County for as long as anyone could remember. His real name was Ray Robinson, and he had been disfigured as a child when he accidentally touched an electrical wire. The incident left him with a face that was misshapen and scarred, with no nose or ears. The townspeople knew Robinson was not a threat. He was a kind and gentle man who lived with his family in a nearby town. But, even with their reassurances, the children were still frightened by his appearance. As a result, Robinson would often take walks in the evening, after the sun had set and the streets were empty. He felt more comfortable in the darkness, away from the stares and whispers of the people he passed during the day. He would walk a path along Route 351, the same route that he had taken for years, never causing any harm to anyone. One night, a young couple was driving along Route 351 when they saw a strange figure walking towards them. They couldn't make out any features of the man in the darkness, but as they drew closer, they could see that his face was disfigured beyond recognition. They were startled but quickly realized it was Charlie No Face. The couple stopped their car and asked him if he needed a ride. Robinson, grateful for the kindness, accepted the offer and climbed into the back seat. He chatted with them, and they could see that he was a kind and gentle man, just like the townspeople had always said. From that night on, the couple would give Robinson a ride home every time they saw him on their drive. And, in the small town of Beaver County, word of the good deed quickly spread. People were surprised to learn that Robinson was a kind man and not the monster they had imagined. But, despite the town's efforts to spread the word about Robinson, the rumors persisted. As time passed, more and more stories emerged about a ghostly figure lurking in the darkness. One evening, a young man was walking home alone on Route 351 when he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. He quickened his pace, his heart racing as the footsteps grew louder. When he turned around, he saw a shadowy figure in the distance, making its way towards him. As it drew closer, he could see that it was Charlie No Face. The man ran as fast as he could, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the sound of Robinson's footsteps growing closer and closer. And, then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, Charlie No Face disappeared. The incident left the young man rattled, and he began to spread the tale of the ghostly figure who haunted the town. Others in the town had similar experiences, with many claiming that they had seen Robinson's ghostly figure lurking in the shadows. Some said that they had even heard the sound of his breathing, despite the fact that he had died years before. The rumors about Charlie No Face continued to spread throughout Beaver County, each story becoming more fantastic than the last. People began to believe that Robinson's ghostly figure was malevolent and that he would haunt anyone who dared to venture out at night. But for all the stories that circulated about Charlie No Face, the townspeople knew the truth. They knew that Robinson was not a monster, but a gentle soul who had suffered a terrible accident.